Them Alive by Nace. Read by Al Richardson. Chapter 2. In diverse ways it seemed as if Dyke had never experienced any life before his existence on the Colombian isle of Malpelo. He knew the sights, the sounds, the smells of the unambitious, undisturbed, unangered people of the island, as they had been before the tidal wave and the quake that followed it. Yet he felt at home among them. Yet he was able to avoid much visiting with them, and to escape their company entirely if he so desired by spending an hour or a day or a week aboard his houseboat or in his shack on the mainland. He tried to tell himself 1,000 times that he would sometime force his mind to put aside the past and become content in the present and the future, eating to live, living to eat, as did the other island people. He'd fished with them sometimes, joined their impromptu festivities infrequently, matched his Texas border Mexican to their South American Spanish, and had shared a few meals with Kello Wani. Poor Kello, so lately chewed to bits and swallowed into the maw and belly of the giant creature now asleep in Dyke's net on the deck, had been his one and only friend on Malpelo. But he'd always known, as he knew at this moment, that bitterness could never be erased, nor even lessened by any happy present or future. Only revenge could perform that miracle. Losing money was an unhappy thing, to be sure. Dyke had lost more of it than most men ever possessed. And torture was another unbearable memory. No man's mind could forget the viciousness Dyke had suffered, especially when it left ever-present headaches and impaired eyesight in its wake. But dismemberment was the real gall of it all, the unforgettable, unforgivable depth. He cared little about the scars on his shoulders and back and buttocks that had healed in raw red ripples. He could even ignore the zigzag seams across both cheeks that never failed to pull horrified stares from passers-by the first time they saw him. He had other attributes going for him as far as looks went. He was proud because his deep-set eyes, so smouldering grey that their molten steel used to knuckle victims to their grovelling knees, looked as good as they ever had. He knew that his shoulder-length hair was so silky, so jet-black that all Malpelo had admired it. He was fiercely pleased that his chin was hard, never relenting, never repentant. But he had fought his willpower when he undressed, every night of those loathsome 11 years, to keep his eyes off the rest of his body. He hated himself, as he despised his would-be killers, because he could never be a man, never know a woman's love, never marry, never father a child. Castration was for animals, so a eunuch was not a man, not woman, not even human. It was nothing, most of all to itself. Lost manhood could never be regained, and it could never be fully atoned for. But it could be avenged, and it would be. He had known all the time that it had to be. The black hatred that seethed within him so desperately long could take him back, any moment he chose to let it, to that pasture in South Texas where he'd survived murder, because he'd been found and helped, and also because he willed himself to live for the sake of vengeance upon his destroyers. They had been young men, all 5 of them, just past being boys, homeless dropouts from society and from life, ranging in age from 20 to 25, and they banded together in the south of Brownsville, Texas, making the river and its 2 borders their hangout, outwitting cops for the hilarious hell of it, swimming in the Rio Grande as they chose, crossing the river at spots far removed from the border guards. They had made their trips in the middle of the night, and they had robbed the bars and flea markets of Matamoros for their food and drink and a few pesos in their jeans. All of them had been jailed at least once, but they had never missed breaking out or being broken out by the others to roam free and steal again. Dyke had run away from home when he was 15 after a knife fight with his dad. He'd hoped to read in the next day's paper that the old man was dead, but his father had recovered. Dyke never went home again. He met the other conspirators one night in an abandoned fruit shed when he ducked out of a motorcycle cop's way. The 5 of them had teamed up within days. Zeb Hilburn and Kane Garrister, both blonde young men with storm-tossed blue eyes, had lived their lives by their vicious wits in Dallas, Laredo, San Antonio, as members of death-dealing boy gangs, killing rival street fighters by their chain-flinging, by quick-draw shootouts, by strangling their opponents or breaking their neck with their bare hands. Tough was what Zeb and Kane were, and what they aimed to stay. Ryan Gout was half Indian by blood and all Navajo reservation by cunning quietness. He was the oldest, the 25-year-old, a year Dyke's senior. Pete Stewart was the really mean one. He was from an eastern ghetto somewhere, white enough to pass, but gouging out the eyes of any man or woman who called him anything but black. He'd never known kindness, never asked for it. He didn't know what it was, in Dyke's estimation. His best leisure activity was chopping small animals to bits or maiming children who came close enough to him to get their arms twisted in the sockets or their leg bones broken. It was Pete who jolted the lot of them out of their lethargies one morning and said, "I don't know about you damn whiteys, but I'm sick and tired of penny ante stuff. I'm taking out to get me some bread that'll buy something big. You damn whiteys can come along or not. Suit yourselves." The other 4 sat up waiting for him to go on. He waited too, obviously wanting them to say yes or no. Finally, Dyke asked, "What do you aim to stick up to get your big wad of bread?" Pete's gaze was cool as it was cruel. "Like I told you, nothing measly anymore, and nothing that'll get a cop's bullet between your eyes if you bash a guy's head in and walk away with $1 million he's hid somewhere. $1 million, maybe 2, and every dollar of it easy and safe to pick up. That's what I'm taking this time." Zeb's mouth twisted in sarcasm. "You ain't just whistling Dixie, man. Ain't no $1,000,000 nowhere without alarms and security guards and a fistful of cops swarming all over it." Kane seconded the skepticism. "Me and Zeb, we know about them things. God, we ought to. We've been kicking out old ladies' brains and snitching their pocketbooks all our lives, and we never got more than 50, maybe 100 if we were lucky. You go higher and you get life, black boy. I don't want to serve no more time in that Mex calaboose with them cockroaches crawling on me." But Dyke said, "Shut up, all of you. If Pete's got something going, let's hear what it is. I'm fed up on getting nowhere. I'd like 1/5 of $1 million in my pockets." Ryan, the quiet Indian, said softly, "Me too. I'd like to be able to buy stuff that no reservation never even seen." Dyke urged, "Okay, get to it, Pete. Who's holding all that easy dough for us to pick up?" Pete took charge at once, plainly pleased to head this discussion that held such potential importance to them all. "Like I told you, it's bread for the taking, nothing to it. A cousin of mine got out of stir last week, come by my pad last night. Said his cellmate in Huntsville Had a ranch neighbour up north, close to that 1-million-acre Reading ranch, you know. Said his cellmate's Gramp used to be pals with the old goat. Said he was 85 or 90. Kept all his bread at home in a safe in the cellar. Couple of million or so. Dyke was leaning forward with Pete's every word, the same as the others. But he commented dryly, "We could waste an old man easy. We could find any safe in anybody's basement, but what do we do then? Nobody here knows how to crack a safe." Pete stood up, waving his hands to stall the other's echoing protest. "I can blow a safe. Didn't you damn dopes know that? Learnt all about it from a smart guy that had been doing it for years down El Paso way. He gave me a bottle of glycerine. I got it bedded down in cotton, enough to blow a bunch of safes. Some clay to mix it up and hold it down, little battery thing to set it off, and blow the door of the safe all to hell. Anybody know any damned easier way to get bread than that?" Dyke queried, still unconvinced. "How come your cousin's not already up there after that dough?" The man snorted. "Old cuz, he's soft in the head. Says he's waiting for his cellmate to get out of stir next month so they can go after it together, on account of they're such damn good buddies. Says the cellmate got the combination to the safe, his Gramp gave it to him. But us, we don't need no combination from nobody. Not when I'm all smarted up on safe blowing. All right, now what about it, you dumb whiteys?" Zeb said, "It sounds more like you're whistling Dixie now, man." Dyke said, "Then we better get with it. Some wacky warden might decide to turn your cousin's cellmate loose a couple of weeks early. I say we better load up and take off right now. Lay it on old Moneybags tonight." Instant agreement from the other four set them packing at once. They threw their few clothes into the trucks of the old 50 Ford. They'd pulled their meagre savings to buy, along with tins of meat and beans, their confusion of ammunition, rusty guns and a box of assorted shells sharpened to points, log chains threaded with nails, brass knuckles, glass bottles snapped into jagged spears, noosed lassos, dynamite, Pete's safe-cracking equipment, and whatever else they had managed to steal for their considerable stockpile. The drive north took half a day, and it was a lark, with everybody tossing his 2 bits worth into the excited conversation. They enjoyed the trip, anyway, Dyke did. He'd never seen this big ranch country with its vast sweep of fat cattle and endless pastures of grass, the ranch houses set back from the road like castles, which most of them were. He wondered what it'd be like to live in a place like that, and he hoped he'd find out when he got his share of $1 million. They waited around until dark and then drove to Old Man Shield's spread. It was exactly where Pete had said it would be, 30 miles from any town or any other ranch house. When the boys crept noiselessly towards the house, they saw no activity and only one light. As they moved closer, the flickering lamp on the dining room table by the bay window told them that Old Man Shield was alone, as Pete's cousin had said he'd been for years. Dyke asked, "Are you positive he's rich, Pete? I mean, would a real millionaire, even a dirty old coot like him, go without lights and read by a lamp?" Kane replied to the question, "Yeah, some of 'em would. We've seen plenty of fellas trying to make other guys think they was broke when they was loaded, ain't we, Zeb?" Zeb nodded, and Dyke countered. "Then what the hell good is his dough doing him?" Ryan said quietly, "Some people just like to look at money. I think maybe I will, anyway for a day or two." Pete spoke with his customary authority. "All right, you whiteys, I'm ringing the bell, and you guys is all standing behind me. We jump him together, roll him around on the floor for a while, maybe knife him a little for damn kicks before we kill him." Kane added, "Yeah, sure, cut his ears off, huh? Ever see a guy with both ears cut off? Hey, Zeb, You remember when we whacked off the ears of that kid in Dallas one night? The way he run around and hollered with blood running down his face? They all chuckled noiselessly at the picture. Then Dyke asked, "What if the old coot offers to open up the safe if we don't cut his throat?" Zeb jeered. "Ain't nobody gonna do that, you damned idiot, and if he did, we'd have to waste him anyway. After we slice him up for a few hours, cut him to pieces slow enough to let us enjoy it. Anybody we'd let go after we got the dough couldn't call the cops fast enough." Pete motioned them all into silence, stepped up to the door, ran his hands up and down the frame. Finding no bell, he knocked loudly once, twice, 3 times. They heard shuffling steps coming down the long, uncarpeted hallway. Then the door opened, and a stooped, shriveled old man squinted into the darkness at the young faces that filled his doorway. "Who is it? What do you want? Who is it, I say?" Pete told him sharply. "Unlock the screen, old whitey. We'll show you who we are and what we want once we get into your house." "No." The old man began to back away from the door. "You're a bunch of hoodlums, that's what you are. I can tell hoodlums when I see 'em. You're not going to... I won't let you in." But Pete was too quick for the old codger. He whipped out a knife and cut the screen wire, reached in and unhooked the screen, banged the door against the wall before Old Shield could slam it tight in their faces. In the second that they all burst through the door to overpower the shaking old man, Dyke thought, "God, he hasn't got a chance. One of us could kick him down and stomp him to death with one foot. I could without anybody's help. God, I wish I'd found out about the dough all by myself and come here without the other guys. If there's really a wad in the old coot's basement, it could have been all mine if I were alone. Oh well, maybe there'll be 5 million so we can have $1 million apiece. I wonder what it'd be like to hold $1 million in your hands and know it was all yours if you didn't get caught. And we won't get nabbed by anybody's dumb cop. We're young and smart and fast. We'll be gone from here and off in some foreign country before anybody misses Old Shield. We'll hot-foot it to Mexico or Africa or somewhere. God, I never had any real money in my whole damned life." Zeb ran ahead of the others and knocked the old man to the floor, kicking the wind out of him with a boot in the belly. Cain gave a whoop of fiendish pleasure as he ploughed a second kick into the prostrate form's groin. The old man groaned, twitched, and lay still. Pete bellowed, "Hey, you damn whiteys, you don't know better than to kill him right off? Don't ever want to do that. Cutting your guy up is half the damn fun. Sometimes all of it. If he ain't got no bread for you to steal." He leaned close, pummeled a fist into the old man's face, first on his nose, then his mouth. Blood gushed from both wounds, spreading red down the soiled shirt, the wrinkled pants the old man wore. "Hey, you damn old whitey, you still alive?" There was no answer, but Pete gave his own reply. "Sure he's breathing and bleeding. You don't bleed this much if you ain't alive." Cain asked, "Anybody want to cut off his ears? I like ear cutting. Never will forget that Blitz gang captain we snipped the ears off when I was a tiger kid in Big D." Ryan urged softly, "I've never seen ears cut off. Go ahead, do it. Let me see if I like it as well as you do." Zeb chimed in. I want to cut off one of them. Tell me when you're ready. We'll do it together. Like we was damp machines on an assembly line." They snapped open switchblade knives that gleamed in the half-light, their edges razor-sharp. At Zeb's nod, both knives flashed fast, once, perfectly timed and executed. The unconscious figure writhed, half sat up, gasped, fell silent once more, then dropped back unconscious. The severed ears dropped beside him, sliced off so precisely that no part remained, Only the ear holes showed in the head that surged fresh blood onto the face, the throat, and the clothes. Dyke said, "Let's finish him off and go for the dough. I'm itching to get my hands on all that green stuff." But Pete shoved him back savagely, knocking him against the corner of a table, bringing pain to his thigh. "Shut up. If you don't, we can't get out of this old buzzard." He squared off for a second, meeting Dyke's gaze directly. "What's the matter, White? Are you going chicken on the fun of slicing?" Dyke stiffened, holding his fists back from his soaring need to smash Pete's face in. Wishing open his own switchblade, he slapped the old man's hand flat on the floor and whacked off all 5 fingers at the first joint. Now spurred by the sight of blood of his own slashing, he sent the blade singing 5 times again, this time lobbing off the fingers and the thumb at the second joint. Steaming hot now, rised to the full joy of cruelty, he cut the stubs one by one, leaving the hand fingerless. He reached for the other hand, but Kane beat him to it, using Dyke's exact torture on it. The other boys were slashing the face, carving X's on the cheeks, long bleeding lines on the forehead. Ripping off the old man's clothes, they attacked the body, vying with each other in inflicting their stabs, cutting into the flabby skin of the stomach and chest, chopping with their knives, as if they were butchers with animal carcasses. Pete whooped, "Betcha I can stick his damn heart. Want a better buck on it, anybody?" Kane countered, "Betcha I can too, if you can." Ryan said softly, "Not much use now. He's dead." Zeb shouted, "What the devil do we care about that? Damn cutting is what we like." And he drove his blade into the stomach and thighs again. Pete's knife shot downward too, sank deep to the hilt. "I think you got his heart this time, damned old Whitey. You want to be sure, Zeb?" "Yeah, sure do." Zeb's blood-reddened knife followed Pete's into the heart section and stabbed as deeply, bringing forth wild cheers of glee from the other visitors in this unequal war. They kept on stabbing and slicing the body, though they all knew that the old man was now lifeless. The bleeding was lessening, and there was no breathing, no movement, no sign of anything but death. Yet the boys cut on, loving the cutting, living it, carving the old form until the arms and legs were half severed, the body a mass of slashes that were drying into massed cakings of dark red. Exhausted at last by their emotional arousal in the killing, the boys fell back, wiping their bloody knives on the old man's clothes, on the chairs, on the divan. Blood ran red upon the floor, and all the boys were splashed with the bright drops that had flicked upon them with the stabbings. Dyke queried, "Is everybody ready to go for the dough now?" And he thought, God, I hope there is dough somewhere in this place. If there's not, we wasted the old coot and wore out our own butts for nothing.